Probably the most effective tool of the Yetzer Hara is to get us to give up. Yush. Do whatever I can to get them to stop their efforts. Now, if we're going to have Mashiach, Mashiach's going to have to be rooted in the idea of anti-Yush. Anything we can do to avoid Yush, we're going to have to get that idea. We're going to have to keep that idea. And to bring Geula, to bring the final redemption, to bring the entire universe to the purpose of life, you're going to need someone to lead us against Yush, against giving up, someone who has come from an impossible situation. Everything about Mashiach is all about anti-Yush. Don't give up. How does Mashiach start? Incredible thing. We know Mashiach comes from David. David initially, what was his life like? Yeah, what was David supposed to be? A Nophelis, a Nophel. He was supposed to be a miscarriage. He wasn't supposed to be alive. Adam HaRishon gave him 70 years of his life. Really, he had no life before. He had no chance. He wasn't alive, so to speak. He comes from an impossible situation. But go back further. Where are the roots of Mashiach? So let's talk about Megillas Rus a little bit, and let's talk about how that whole story started. So here's a situation where Elimelech is in Eretz Yisrael. He's in Beis Lechem, and he's one of the Gedolei Hador, and there's a terrible famine. Klal Yisrael is suffering tremendously. And he gives up. He says, I don't know what I can do. The pain is on and on. I can't see so many of my people suffering. So he takes his wife and his 2 children, and they go to Moab. A very strange thing to do. At least they're away from what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. They can't see the pain of their people, and they leave. They almost give up. It's a famine. Great. Now, they get to Moab, and as you know, the famous story is that Elimelech dies. And his wife Naomi is left with the 2 children, who are actually adults, and they marry 2 non-Jewish women. The names are Rus and Orpah. Fine. Machlon and Kilion marry Rus and Orpah. Now, eventually Machlon and Kilion die also, and Naomi, which means pleasantness, is left with no husband and no children, and only her non-Jewish daughters-in-law. Incredible thing. She's broken. As a matter of fact, when she goes back to Eretz Yisrael, Rus accompanies her. One of her daughters-in-law goes with her, and she says, and all the people say, Hazos Naomi, is this Naomi? And they say, she says, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, bitterness, because my life was pleasant, Naomi, and now it's all bitterness. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu has poured out his Midas Adin on me, and now I'm a bitter woman. She was broken. She was almost unrecognizable as she was. Even though she was beautiful when she was Mechubeda, she was a beautiful woman before that. She was very important. She was wealthy. Now she was totally broke. She was so poor she couldn't pay for the burial shrouds for her own children. Rahman al-Islam, a terrible situation. You think, hey, that person can give up from such a thing. And Rus also. Rus was discouraged from coming back and becoming a Gioris. What happened to her? Rus, you're 40 years old. Who's going to marry you? You're a Gioris from another country. You've been married before. You're an Almana. Back in Eretz Yisrael, all the young boys that want to get married, they're going to marry girls half your age that were born Jewish, that were never married. What's going to be with you? Rus said, no, I have to do the right thing. I'm not giving up. Now, fast forward a little bit further. She eventually, after a tremendous, tremendous story, marries Boaz. Now, what are the circumstances that she marries Boaz? It's not a simple situation here. And also, what was she marrying Boaz from? Why would Boaz want to marry her? What's going on over here? So let's back up. There's a halacha called Yibum. Yibum is if a man marries and he dies without children. So what happens? The halacha is that one of the brothers has to do Yibum. Other people can also do Yibum, but the priority is that the brother should do Yibum. Now, what that means is the other brother, one of the surviving brothers, marries the almana, marries the unmarried woman, the woman who was a widow, and the neshama of that widow sticks to the neshama of the unmarried husband, of the husband that died, now sticks to his surviving wife. When the surviving wife goes through a Yibum marriage, when she marries one of the brothers, the child that comes out is the same neshama. Now, it's a very strange thing, because what happens with Rus is a similar thing that happened another time in history. Rus, when she finally gets married, and she's going to marry Boaz. So the people say, you know what? The people of Sanhedrin that are there, that when he's actually getting married, they give him a bracha that your children from Rus should be like Peretz, the son of Tamar. Now, what's that? So Tamar is another situation of Yibum. Tamar, there was Yehuda many years before in Eretz Yisrael, the 12 Shvatim, and Yehuda is one of the 12 Shvatim. Yehuda is having a very difficult situation. What happens to him? he's the king. He's the leader, and everyone's listening to him. And eventually they sell Yosef to go into slavery. And Yosef is a terrible thing. Yaakov Avinu is broken for many years because of this. Now, the Shvatim said, all those different tribes said to Yehuda, you are our leader. Had you told us to not sell Yosef and to bring Yosef back to our father, we would have listened to you. Now that you didn't do that, we're taking you down as the king. You're not the king anymore. Okay? So now he loses. He's a king that's dethroned. That's very depressing. A person give up from that. Fine. He gets married. He said, look, I'm not so chashuv anymore, so I'll get married. He marries a regular person. And he has 3 kids, Onan, and Shelah. He takes a nice wife for Her name is Tamar, a great tzedekis. Beautiful. Everything's perfect. Now, dies. Terrible. So because dies without children, then Onan, the second brother, has to do Yibum. Fine. Onan does Yibum. Now, he dies also. Yehuda says, wait a second. I have a third brother to give to Tamar, a third son, but I'm afraid that if I give another one, then maybe my third son is going to die also. Because Tamar already, when she was married, she lost 2 husbands. Maybe my third son is going to die when he marries her. I can't have that. So incredible thing happens. So Tamar, who was married first and married again and lost both husbands, is sitting in her father's house as an almana, as a double widow for many years. They said, what's going to be? I don't know what's going to happen over here. And she could easily give up. But she doesn't give up. She says, you know what? I want to have children from Yehuda. I want to bring out Mashiach. I want to bring out the Malchus based David. I know he's supposed to be the king. I know the kingship and the Mashiach is going to come from him, and I want to bring out his potential. He's dead ending. He's not getting anywhere. He's probably giving up. His wife died, and now his 2 kids are dying, and his youngest kid is not getting married. He's dead ending. So I want to bring out his potential. And Tamar goes through a whole thing. Eventually, she tricks. This is with Siyat Dishmai, of course. Hashem helped them, but she tricks Yehuda into marrying her. And Mashiach comes out of that. Peretz came out of that. Now, it's a very strange thing. Why does the Yibum have to take place in such a strange situation? Why didn't Hashem make it that Shelah, the youngest son, could have married her? That would have brought out Mashiach. The line of Yehuda would have continued. Why wouldn't that happen? And also, Boaz, who's the Gadol Hador, marries Rus. Why couldn't somebody else marry Rus? Also a redeemer. Someone else could have done the same thing. There were other people there. As a matter of fact, Machlon and Kilion, the 2 original sons that went to Eretz Moab and married these 2 girls, Rus and Orpah, these non-Jewish girls, one of them could have lived. Hashem could have easily arranged it that Kilion, the second son, would have lived, and he would have done Yibum. Why did Hashem make such a strange situation where the Gadol Hador, 80-year-old Boaz, he's the one, he's more of a distant relative, he's the one that's going to do the Yibum? Why is that? And why did Hashem make it that Yehuda is the one that's doing the Yibum with Tamar? It's a very strange situation. So listen to this Gewaltige Wort. This all comes from Rav Moshe Alshich. Incredible Wort. When Tamar gave birth, she gave birth to twins. It's a very important idea. When Yibum happens, you have to make sure that when Yibum happens, when the surviving life, like we said earlier, marries one of the brothers, the first son that they have is actually the neshama of her deceased husband, of the first husband. So now, that means that who's the first son of Yehuda, was the baby that was born the first time when Tamar had a baby. And she had twins. That means Onan also was born. If a regular person, a regular brother does Yibum, only one neshama comes. And it's usually the second neshama, not the first one. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted both neshamas to come, so he caused the father, Yehuda, to be the one that's Yibum. When the father does Yibum, he can bring both neshamas back. And that's what he did. But not only that, if had Shelah, the younger brother, married Tamar, he was a good person, but he wasn't anywhere near as much of a tzaddik as Yehuda was. So Yehuda was such a great tzaddik, his combined schus with him and Tamar brought out the great neshama of Peretz. And Peretz was the forerunner of Mashiach. Now, that's the same exact thing that happened with Rus. Rus was an incredible neshama. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you need her great schus combined with the schus of Boaz to bring out the better neshama of her first husband. The neshama of, who was the first one? Machlon. Machlon was this great neshama that came from Elimelech. And once Boaz married Rus, then the child that they had was the neshama of Machlon. Now, what's incredible about this is the following. If you take a look at the situation of Naomi, she's broken. She gets married to one of the Gedolei Hador, Elimelech. Everything's great. She's doing great. And then she has 2 kids, 3 kids. Everything's fine. They go to Moab. Her husband dies. Her 3 boys die. And all she's left with her is her non-Jewish daughter-in-law. She's nothing left. She's totally broke. She's depressed. She's aged terribly. She's in terrible pain. What's going to be with her? And Elimelech, who was also, he knew the Mashiach was going to come out of him. Elimelech means Alai Melech, on me is the king. He understood the Mashiach is going to come out of him. Elimelech died, and his 3 sons died. He dead-ended, just like Yehuda did initially. But wait a second. Now that Rus, who's the daughter-in-law, who has the neshama of Machlon in her neshama, now that Rus gets married to Boaz and she has a child, the child's name is Oved. Oved is the neshama of Machlon. He's the neshama of the original couple of Elimelech and Naomi. So even though Elimelech seems to have nothing and Naomi seems to have nothing, the truth is the neshama of their child came back now as Oved. And Oved was the grandfather of David HaMelech, the beginning of the Malchus based David, of the kingdom of David, of the whole kingdom of the Jewish people. And eventually Mashiach came from that. So you see, never give up. They didn't lose. Their neshama got that way. Understand? Now, who is this Rus? What's with her? So she doesn't give up, and she marries the Gadol Hador. Fantastic. But where does she come from? So Rus says that Rav Moshe Alshich was the Gilgul of somebody else. Rus, remember the 2 daughters of Lot? Lot was trying to escape from Sodom. And he didn't know where to go, so he ran to a mountain, and he's in a cave. And he's in a cave with his 2 daughters. And the 2 daughters thought, this is the end of the world. Nothing. What's going to be with us? They said, we're the only ones that are alive now. Just like Hashem brought the Mabul, he's destroying the world now. Before it was water, now it's fire, he's destroying the world again. If we don't extract children from our own father, the whole world, humanity will not continue. So the oldest daughter said, L'Shem Shemayim, she got her father intoxicated, and she extracted seed from her father. So she was able to have a child from her father. It was the wrong thing to do, but her intent was 100% L'Shem Shemayim. Now, it was an Avera. It wasn't a good thing to do. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, your intentions were so much L'Shem Shemayim that I'm going to reward you. So I'm going to bring you back, oldest daughter of Lot, as a Gilgul, and she became Rus. She came back as Rus. So many years later, Rus is doing the same exact thing, and she's bringing out that great seed of Mashiach, Dafka, Al Yedei. She's bringing out that great seed of Mashiach, Dafka, Al Yedei Boaz, who comes from Peretz. The whole purpose was not to give up in the situation that they're in. She didn't give up. Now the daughter, the original daughter of Lot, could have said, I give up. The world's over. She didn't give up, and she did all she could possibly do by bringing out the seed of her father. Now, it was a mistake to do, but she didn't give up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm going to reward you with that fantastic thing. I'm not letting you fail. I'm going to let you keep on going. Now, what happens as a result? She is the one that brings out Mashiach. Now, if you look closely, Boaz was 80 years old. Boaz was also in a difficult situation because Boaz had 30 boys and 30 girls before he married Rus. All of them got married, and all of them died. A person like that, he knows he's supposed to bring out Mashiach, and all of his children die. 60 children died. Rahman al-Islam. What's going to happen in a situation like that? How can it be? The very last day that Boaz is alive, and he wants to get married, he doesn't know it's his last day. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends him Rus. And that night that they get married, they have a child. Rus conceives, and that child is Oved, the forerunner of Mashiach. The last day of Boaz's life, he fathered Mashiach. Unbelievable. So you see, Boaz also didn't give up. As a matter of fact, there's a sheet in the Zohar that says, or Moshe Alshich brings this down, that Boaz was a Gilgul of the original Yehuda. Yehuda, who was the king, and he's brought down as the king. And he failed so badly, and then he got married, and 2 of his kids died. He was dead-ending. And then eventually Tamar brought out his potential, and they had Peretz, the forerunner of Mashiach. That same Yehuda came back now as Boaz. And even though Boaz seems to be in an apparently difficult situation, impossible, all of his kids died, 60 children died. In the end, the last day of his life, Mashiach came out. That is the key for every Jew to realize that, you know what? It looks like it's impossible. David Melech had no life. He wasn't even supposed to be alive, and he made it. Rus, she came from nowhere. She was in Moab. She was the daughter of the princess. She had no connection to the Jewish people, but she had a pure neshama, and she made it. She became the mother of Mashiach. And the daughters of Lot thought the world was over, and they also became the mothers of Mashiach. As a matter of fact, there's a shita that the younger daughter, who did the same thing to bring out the seed from her father, she came back as Naomi. So Naomi is the mother-in-law. And Naomi is the one who facilitated Rus to go to Boaz. Incredible! So you see from this, a person should never give up. There's never a situation where a person is allowed to give up. He should keep on going, do whatever he can, and know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. If a person realizes that, especially because we're the part of the Jewish people, and we're forever, a person will never get up and is going to be a Geula Shlema B'mheira V'yameinu.